Good evening, good evening, good evening, Southside family. Hope you're doing well. It is Monday night, 7 o'clock p.m. on the East Coast. And you know what time it is. That means that it's time for the Monday message recall, the MMR, where you can come out and get a boost for your spirit, a boost for your soul, as we recap the sermon that was delivered this past Sunday or yesterday by at the Southside Church of Christ. I'm John Merriweather, the online minister for the Southside Everywhere campus, and I want to welcome you to this conversation on tonight. Usually, I'm joined by my wife Deneen, but she's out traveling again. She's on the road, so we're going to try to hold it down. So I'm going to depend on you to come in here and come in and join this conversation so that we can recap and share our notes together, because we know iron sharpens iron. And so we are called to study together so that we can search the scriptures and see if these things be so, and so that we can also strengthen our inner person. So come on into the room. We had a powerful message on yesterday, because you do know that that this year is the year of overcoming, and we are striving to be overcomers, and we're striving this month in particular to overcome trauma. So that is the focus of the sermon series on this month. So come on in, share this for those that may not have been able to join us on yesterday, or may not have been able to participate due to other commitments, because we know sometimes people forget, and sometimes people get busy, and sometimes people are at their own congregations, but it's okay to share this word with them anyhow, so that they can have some additional tools to put in their tool belt and be able to be overcomers with us as well. So I see we got Sister Bird up in here. We got Sister Nikki Pratt up in here. Good to see y'all. And come on up into this conversation. So as we begin, go ahead and put the title of the sermon and the scripture into the chat here on this evening, and we'll do a few more house cleaning or housekeeping things here as we prepare for this conversation. But also want to remind everybody, you see I'm wearing the North Carolina Central shirt. Yesterday was our I Love My HBCU and the D9 Sunday. So people were wearing and representing their schools, or either representing their fraternity or sorority as we enter into Black History Month. So y'all come on up into the room, and we about to have this conversation on tonight. All right, I see Sister Burt put it in there. She put it in there, 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 8 and verse 9. And the title of the sermon was Be a Blessing. So as we like to do at this time, we like to go over to the scripture and read it for to set the context of the conversation. All right, I see you, Sister Nikki. Thank you for that. And we're going to start this conversation on tonight. So First Peter, um, First Peter chapter 3, beginning with verse 8, and it says, "Finally, be ye Finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another, love as brethren, be pitiful, be courteous, not rendering evil for evil, or railing for railing, but contrariwise blessing, knowing that ye are thereunto called, that ye should inherit a blessing." All right, all right. So yes, Sister Nikki, all right, appreciate that, because I was looking, I was like, oh, am I supposed to be in Second Peter? But no, it's First Peter chapter 3 and verse 8 through 9. So appreciate that. And so we want to focus on being a blessing, because we know, as they say, that hurt people, but the opposite is also true, that healed people heal people. Come on, somebody, I'm talking already. That healed people heal people. And so we want to be a community that have healed individuals, so that we can help to heal others. And so as we come into this, brother Thomas started off this conversation, is that sometimes we get too tied up in our greetings in our Christian communities, in how we greet each other, rather than the substance of the relationship. And by that, what I mean by that is, sometimes we get so concerned about greeting somebody as brother so and so, sister so and so, pastor so and so, elder so and so, deacon so and so, minister so and so. We get so enamored by the title and the casual common interactions that it causes us to have a lack of empathy or a lack of, like Deneen would say, true relationship. We relate to each other through title, but we don't relate with each other through experience, and there's not an emotional bond, and such a failure in that can show up as a lack of support and a lack of care when individuals are going through difficult times. And see, sometimes we catch ourselves, and we can if we're gospel honest on tonight, we can find ourselves sometimes when somebody is going through something, and we want to step out, and we may want to encourage them, we may want to help them, may want to give them some advice, but the thing that comes up in our mind is, I don't really know them like that, right? And it's a shame, because we are brothers and sisters, and we are supposed to have things in common, but sometimes between the how you doing, the blessed and highly favored, and the mask that we wear, that prevents us from really to get to know each other on a personal level. But we have to remember that we have to treat each other not as roles, but we should be growing to treat each other as friends and as family, because that's what the first century church actually did in Acts chapter 2. And that's why the explosion was so, and the growth was so explosive, because they had that relationship and they had that foundation. And those relationships, that tightness, that closeness, can only be built, as Brother Thomas shared with us, through openness and vulnerability. That helps us because when you go through something and you can express that you're going through something, but not be judged by it, but be helped through it and walk through it, it brings us closer together. I never will forget. That's how myself and Brother Great Battle got closer together, because I was struggling trying to find a place to get my master's degree, and he came to my aid, and we started having a conversation, and he introduced me to North Carolina Central. But I was hitting some roadblocks while I was at State, and figured out that State wasn't the place to be. And how many of you know that when you have a dream, when you have a goal that you're trying to accomplish, and you see that goal sort of slipping through, that can be damaging or detrimental to your soul. And I did the same for him when he started to go after his PhD. I told him, I was like, I need you to stop talking about it. I need you to go ahead and get that paperwork submitted by next month. So the next time I ask you about it, I don't need to hear that you're thinking about going, and you finna do that someday you're going to do, because finna and someday are not days on the calendar. Come on, somebody. And encourage him to enroll to get his PhD. What am I saying? I'm saying that once you open yourself up with the struggle, and you can build that trust and get that assistance that you need, and there's many more things, when you sit with somebody in the family, in the church, that's going through a terrible loss, or they're going through, an illness, and you go through that together, you bond, you grow closer together, and there's a relationship right there, right? And so that's what we're here to be that shoulder. And somebody told me this too. And, sometimes we get into this situation. I'm going to move on here in a minute, but I'm just going to put this out here. Sometimes they say it's not what you say, it's just your presence being there. I was watching something on Instagram, and a lady was talking about she was going through a mental episode, and she called her husband, and she said, something ain't right here, and I just need you to come home. And he came home, and he didn't say a word to her. He just sat there while she put her head on his shoulder, and he just held her and just let her be in that moment, right? And then after that moment passed, she's like, okay, I'm all right now. He said, all right. He's like, okay, I'm going to go back to work. But if you need me, you call me. It's things like that opens up, even if we don't know exactly what's wrong, but having somebody to call to share that space with us, to stand in that gap, to comfort us and be by our side as we're dealing with whatever we're dealing with. So on tonight, he says that we have to get to that level. We have to get to that space. We have to be there and be that support one for another, because he says, if you look at the church is a body. And when you think of trauma, that means that an injury has occurred to a body. And many of us, many a times we have an injury in the church, but we don't share, we don't open up, and we don't let that be known. And now we're walking around, we're damaged, we're hurting. And like you said, sometimes we look good on the outside, but there's some internal damage. Come on, internal bleeding. There is an internal injury. There is, as some people say, I don't know if you ever heard of this term, walking pneumonia. You look like you're functioning fine, and you look like you're doing okay, and you having a little difficulty, but you can still function. But then all of a sudden, your lungs fill up with fluid and you pass away. Why? Because there was something on the inside that was going on that you weren't communicating, that you weren't taking notice of. And so we must, to be able to eradicate the trauma that we are experiencing as members in the church and members members individually, that we must build relationship to eradicate the trauma that is occurring in our lives. So he shared with us that a lot of times we are bleeding on each other and we're spreading the contamination instead of treating it. And so this is the year, this is the month that we got to do. Remember last month he said we got to do the work, and that's going to be the charge going through the year. So we got to be willing to do the work and come forward. So this is what he's saying. He's saying that in this text is dealing, Peter is talking to a group of Jews that are scattered, that are persecuted, that are being tested, that are being tried, and they're living in a time where the society of the time is a place where they are bloodthirsty. They are used to injuring each other. They are used to going to the Colosseum and seeing each other being killed for sport. And when somebody is being tortured, and when they lose the battle, they say, hey, kill or let them live. And a lot of people saying, kill them, down with them. And sometimes we are like that in the church. When somebody is down, when somebody is suffering, instead of getting and building them back up, we hurt them. We keep on punishing them, and we don't give them a second chance. But here's the thing. He says that Peter is speaking to them, and he's speaking to them saying that healing should occur within community, and that we should focus not on the trauma, but we should focus on being a blessing to those that are going through hardships and going through difficult times. And so he said, God called us not to be a critic, but God has called us to be a blessing. And now let me clarify this as well. He says that we can hold people accountable. We don't just let things blow over. That used to be a saying when I was growing up and coming up as a young man in the church. They said, oh, let it blow over, bruh. Just let that slide. No, we can hold each other accountable while we're also holding their hand to help them heal. And so on tonight, he says that we have to be a blessing, that we have to be able to lift them up and not tear them down, that we should focus on three things. And the first thing he says is that we have to have the right attitude. He says in verse 8, he says, finally, all of you have a united mind, a mind that's sympathetic, and have brotherly love, and be compassionate to each other. He says this is a clause where he's using 5 adjectives to discuss a certain attitude, but he says at the center of it is brotherly and sisterly love. This means that caring, this means that compassion, this means the love that is based in agape. This is the love that you're not trying to build come on now, somebody, you ain't trying to take advantage of them and build a emotional relationship with them, that dating relationship with them. You're not trying to take advantage of them. You're not trying to have that person in a place where they're always needing you. No, you're building a relationship with them to lift them up and elevate them out of what they are suffering through. And so sometimes it means that, and he's like, we have to be careful that we don't become so bloodthirsty that we let society dictate to us how we should treat each other in the church. This says love will cover a multitude of sins. That doesn't mean that we don't hold them accountable, but what it means is that we don't keep on exposing them to that time and time again. And he says also, he's like, this does not mean that we will always agree. He says that we having one mind means having the mind of Christ, where Christ had a lowly mind, right? He had a mind that was humble. This is based in humility of the one that is giving the assistance, but also the one that's receiving the assistance. And it means that we don't have to be uniform, but we should all have a mind that is built around service and edification. And that's what we are called to do. And we know that people are going to mess up, because how many of us mess up, right? And so why do we set the bar higher for somebody else than we set for ourselves? We set the bar for a punishment for somebody else when they mess up. But when we mess up, we seeking for grace and mercy and strength and encouragement and pray for me. And I'm not there yet. And, you know, I'm struggling and all that. Well, we should be able to have that mindset and put ourselves in someone else's shoes when they're going through a difficult time, and when they're going through their season of grieving, and when they're going through their season of illness. And just how we want somebody to stop by or call or text or check on us, we should have that same heart when somebody else is going through their moment as well, right? And so then also doesn't mean that we have to be have to see everything the same way, but also he says that it's not about uniformity, but it's about unity. It's not about how we look externally, but it's how we are operating internally. One mind does not mean our mind, but one mind means the mind of Christ. And so we have to make sure that we have compassion and tenderness, that we treat each other when we call each other brother and sister. Are we really operating in that relationship? Because it's not a title, it's a relationship. When I call him Brother Thomas, am I treating him as my brother, or am I just recognizing him because he's the minister? When I say Sister Nikki, am I really treating Sister Nikki as my sister, or is that just the title that I'm using because that's what we're used to in church protocol? And so we must be there to be there and build that sister and brother-sister relationship. So that means that we be there, we rejoice with them when they rejoice, and we weep with them when they're weak. We're happy when they're happy. We feel their pain when they're pain. And that's when it means, when it says bowels of mercy, it means that when we see that person, we feel something deep inside. It's a connection. It's an empathy. This weekend, I was blessed to be able to be at the homegoing services of Brother Wally Sharon Jr. and being there and being able to support the family and seeing Brother Wiley Sharon the third there, his son, seeing him there and being able to embrace him and being able to reconnect, because we are brothers, we're close, and we've had relationship. And he was one of the first people that took me in while I was there in Durham, and being able to be there to support him and hug him and look him in the eye and see, hey, I know this is a rough time, but and knowing that he's like, okay, I'm leaning on God. I'm going to be all right. He's like, I'm going to have some rough days and some good days, but I know that God is going to see me through. Being able to see that in his eyes, it felt something. I felt something that meant something to me, right? And so that's what we have to feel when we're that connectivity with our brothers and sisters. Okay, and then he said, point two, because time is quickly passing away here. It says that point two, I saw somebody put it in the chat. We have to have, there we go. We have to have the right response. We have to have the right response. And even though we were hearing this same word on yesterday, doesn't mean that we all took it in the same way. And we're all, it doesn't mean that we're going to submit to it in the same manner. But how do we respond when trauma takes place? It says that we have to have a mindset not to repay evil for evil. Come on now. No more eye for an eye. No, that, get my lick back. Come on now. And to the contrary, Brother Thomas was encouraging us to bless those people. Bless those people so that in turn that we can stop the cycle, but also we can begin a new cycle with God, because God blesses those who curse them or use them or tries to take advantage of them. We have to bless them. And that doesn't mean now we don't call it out, but we don't get them back the same way they treated us, right? It's easier to give people what they tried to get, or what they did give you, right? If somebody cuss you out, guess what? It's easier for you to cuss them back out. It takes the Spirit of God inside of us to be able to turn the other cheek and to walk away. And that turn the other cheek doesn't necessarily mean turn their cheek, right? I had to study on that because that was my understanding. Is like, hey, they got a cheek too. I could turn that. That's the other cheek. But anyway, God is calling us to break the cycle. And it doesn't mean just do it one time. It is a continual state of blessing so that they don't break the spirit that is inside of us, but we break the cycle and they start realizing, you know what? Because sometimes by you not reacting in the same way that they are expecting, and you reacting in a God-like manner, it breaks them down and they say, I've never done anything good to this person, but they're always nice. They're always, and they get curious. And sometimes after the passage of time, they become open, and that spirit that you displayed wins them over and it opens them up. But look, sometimes you got to give it some room and let them breathe. Give them some space. And it's a challenge because we're called to love our enemies, right? And that means that sometimes that means that we don't retaliate in the moment. That means that sometimes we got to walk off. I was good back in the day of walking off. It's like, okay, I'm over here, walking over here. I'm counting to 10, getting away from you because I'm trying to spare you and myself from escalating this situation any further, right? But Brother Thomas encouraged us the best thing and the most powerful thing we can do in times like that is to pray for somebody. And he made us now don't go out there praying the prayers of David, the vengeance prayers, right? We can call God to protect us. We can call God to stand up for us and to defend us. But we should be praying, God, touch them. God, help them. I don't know what they're going through, but the way that they're acting is not right. That God, open up their heart, open up their eyes, let them see that I'm not I'm not in opposition to them. I'm not in competition with them. I'm not here to hurt them, Father. Father, bring them, let them see and understand your love. Pray for them right there. And Sister Bird, I see you. She said reactions are usually impulsive, and sometimes our impulses are way, way wrong. But you know what? Going back to physics, they say that something that's in motion will stay in motion. And it takes a certain amount of energy to get something moving. And once you get something moving, it's hard to stop. Sometimes those impulses will start a chain reaction to going that we can't pull back. How many of us have said something in the heat of the moment and it's caused damage to a relationship, and it's caused that trauma that we've been speaking about? And no matter right now, it's very difficult to try to build that thing back. It takes God to come in and step in to put that thing back together. All right, I got 5 minutes, y'all. Okay, so he says, so that was we got to have the right response. We got to have the right attitude. We got to have the right response. And then finally, he says we have to have the right motive, right? We got to have the right motivation or the right motive. And what that means is that our intent has to be pure. So if we want God if we want to inherit a blessing from God, we have to bless other people. We have to give what God has already equipped us with so that we can receive more of what God has for us. And that's how God elevates us. That's how God encourages his children and life is too hard now to live without blessings. I need all the blessings I can get. And so, in order to do that, I need to make sure that I'm treating people right, even when they may not be treating me the best, even when they may not be treating me right. So many of us says that many of us have a mindset that that doesn't seem fair, that doesn't add up. And what Brother Thomas was sharing with us is that it's human nature to hate to be taken advantage of, or to seem like we're taking the short end of the stick, or that we're at a disadvantage. But if we pray for them, God will always make sure, God will make sure that we will be rewarded for our faithfulness. Excuse me. God is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. And so if we obey his word, I believe that he will reward us. And now that does not mean that you're going to receive a new house, a new car, or more money, but there is something about having peace. When you can stand accused by somebody, when you can be mistreated by somebody, and you can stand in your soul and say, I have not done anything to this person. I have not done anything to this man or to this woman to deserve this treatment. There is something about the peace of knowing that you are innocent. And we studied this morning on the morning sip. Y'all remember that God hates those who are swift to shed innocent blood. God will defend the innocent. And so having the presence of God, having the favor of God in our life will make sure that we succeed and make sure that we will achieve no matter what may try to oppress us. That is why doors will open. That's why opportunities will come our way. I was sharing with somebody this weekend. I was like, I've been through through a situation, and I was like, years of being held back, years of being mistreated. And I said, in 1 year, God is restoring what they held back over 15 or 20 years. And I was like, that is the favor of God. And God is able to catch you up and to restore and to bless and to elevate you where people have tried to keep you down. And so I want you to understand that, yes, it may seem like it may be painful right now. It may be a struggle right now. It may be a challenge right now, but trusting in God is totally worth it. And he will help us, and he will have his hand upon us. And if we do what we say, by the hand of God, we will obtain what God has for us. And so we should love, and we should love, and we should live a life of love. And our eyes should be on the Lord, because the Lord's eyes is upon us, and his face will always be turned away from those that do evil. And so remember, like they say, we will always rise, because God is our elevator, God is our buckler, God is our support, and God will make sure that his children will be rewarded for their faithfulness. So that's it on tonight. I hope that was a good word. I hope that helped you. I hope I did a good job of recapping. I was trying to run the technology. I'm sorry I didn't get everybody's comments up in here, but I see y'all in the chat. And so, look, I thank y'all for coming out on tonight. All right, Sister Graham, it's good to see you, Sister Graham. Glad you could swing through on this evening. I hope that you, and look, we are continually praying for you and your husband, Brother Weldon Graham, for your health and for your strength. So good to have you here. So thank y'all for coming out for the MMR on tonight. Look, come back tomorrow for the members of our Southside Everywhere community, where we'll have community prayer night. So we'll pray for the request of our brothers and sisters. And look, if you've enjoyed this and you're not a part of our community, you can come be a part of us by coming and searching for Southside Everywhere on Facebook. You can join us in that community, and we will. All you have to do is answer a few questions, and we would love to have you in that community with us. We will welcome you with open arms. Just in case, if you're searching for spiritual conversations just like this, or if you're wanting to be part of an online community of believers, you will be welcome here. You can also go to southsideew.com and be part of that membership as well. And so look, that's it. It is 7:31. Y'all know what I'm about to do. Even though Deneen is out of town, I'm about to go someplace and find something to eat, feed these children, and we'll be back at the next appointed time. But until then, God bless, and we'll see you at the next appointed time. Take care, family. Love you.